Florida Republicans and Donald Trump's presidential campaign. In 2016, the federal government decided to stop contracting with private prisons because a Department of Justice investigation had found they were unsafe. But after Trump's inauguration in early 2017, GEO Group received $774 million worth of contracts to run federal prisons. On January 30th, 2018, the day that Florida immigration bill was considered in Tallahassee, so many people showed up that the hearing room reached capacity. Muslim students and Latino farm workers and their teenage children, who had traveled hours to testify against the bill, weren't allowed in the packed room. Expressionless, they watched the proceedings on a television mounted in a hallway, as Florida Senator Aaron Bean stood at a podium and said his bill means criminals will be kept off the streets. The bill did not advance, in what counts as a victory, in part because in 2011, immigrant rights groups staged weeks-long protests in Tallahassee to oppose a bill modeled after Arizona's 2010 law that allowed police officers to ask for immigration papers if they suspected someone was undocumented. The Florida legislature didn't pass a new aggressive anti-immigrant law until 2019, when it gave the state the power to sue local law enforcement that refused to detain people according to orders from federal immigration agencies. The next day, January 31st, Floridians concerned about sea level rise arrived in Tallahassee by the busload to ask their legislatures to pass a raft of proactive climate-related reforms. Many were college students or recent graduates who had grown up along the coast and understood that the window of opportunity for stalling climate change was closing. During their lifetimes, they told me, their hometowns would be radically altered, if not sunken. By the end of the legislative session that March, none of the bills they wanted were passed, even though just 10 years ago, it was all but mandatory for both Democrats and Republicans in Florida to at least make overtures about the need for proactive environmental laws. Similar scenes play out in hearing rooms across the country, usually unrecognized by the American public. Beneath the tumult of the Trump presidency, state lawmakers have largely kept to their course. As Alec's own website explained in 2017, state legislatures around the country have made significant progress, passing bills on issues such as immigration, policing, and healthcare, even as Republicans in Congress and President Trump have struggled to make similar progress at the federal level. After decades of state-based campaigns coordinated by Libertarian and Republican operatives, and disinvestment in the states by Democrats and progressives, right-wing politicians have swept control of state houses across the country. The consequences of those divergent strategies are glaring today. Democrats hit a rock bottom in November 2016, when Republicans won control of either the state legislature or the governorship, or both, in 44 states. In 25 of those states, like Florida, Republicans hit the trifecta: governorship, House, and Senate. Democrats, meanwhile, had a trifecta in 6 coastal states. The significance of those numbers leaps out at you when you look at a map from 2009, when Democrats dominated or shared control of many states that 10 years later would become blood red. For years, it has been an open secret in political circles that Democrats and progressive interest groups have prioritized federal candidates and policy at the expense of the states. The liberal political establishments, party officials, interest group and union leaders, donors and consultants, have for the most part under-resourced state-based efforts since at least the 1970s, with repercussions that have only recently been obvious to the general public. Conservatives have traditionally had this view that they want to build and invest and focus at the state level, where progressives and Democrats have really centralized and tried to build their power in Washington, D.C. And I think that theory has had negative implications for and negative